I will hit record. There you go. Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to the general meeting for March. We're looking at the league action past, present, and future tonight. And for our agenda tonight, you've got me to start with. I'm doing your welcome, your introductions, and your land acknowledgements. My name's April. And then I'll hand it off to Ann Murphy, and then she'll be looking at your action, past, local, and state legislator, present, what is still alive in the legislature, which is fascinating to me. I mean, I can't wait to hear that. I'm excited about that. And then the future, what's coming up with campaign for redistricting reform, and that will be with Allison McCaffrey a little later in the program. And then I'll come back on and do your closing announcements. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's spring. I love spring. I saw so many robins on my walk yesterday. They were everywhere, like tons of them, which means that that's spring right there. The minute the robins show up, I think of spring. So tonight, spring robins action. Also, Anne reminded me that today's Pi Day. We've got March 14th as Pi Day, so that's another great call out. And of course, it's Women's History Month as well. So we've got that going on. And then I just want to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Spokane people, and that these lands were once the major trading center for the Spokanes as they shared this place and welcomed other area tribes through their relations, history, trade, and ceremony. We also acknowledge that the land holds the spirit of the place through its knowledge, culture, and the original peoples since time immemorial. We ask that you recognize these injustices that forever changed the lives of the Spokane people and all of their relatives. We agree to work together to stop all acts of continued injustices towards Native Americans and all our relatives. It is time for reconciliation, and we must act upon the truths and take action that will create restorative justice for people, for all people. All right, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Ann Murphy, who is our LWVSA Action Chair, and she's also the LWVWA, so Spokane versus State of Washington. She's the State of Washington Lobby Team Solid Waste Issue Chair. It's all yours, Ann.
Okay, thank you, April, and wanted to just, as we start into this, remind ourselves what it is that action means in terms of being in the league. Action in the terms of advocacy, it means we're promoting our positions at on local, state, and national public policy issues. And we here in Spokane Area League would act on issues before local government entities, and that can be our city governments and our county governments and our school boards. We because we go and we say, we want you to do this, and that of course is based on our positions. Now, a couple months ago, Sylvia did a great program on program of work planning and what it means to do our do that work so that we study and have that backdrop for the positions. And so that means, because we have these various different study options, we have policy positions to support action at all three levels of the League of Women Voters. So for us here in Spokane, we have a document called the Positions on Public Policy, and Sylvia will be putting some links in the chat for you to be able to find that. It's in our member handbook, and I'm not sure you need to have your members only process figured out to get to that, but you can find the positions here in Spokane. And then there are like positions for the state of Washington. It's called Program in Action. And then for the National League, Impact on Issues. And the beauty of what we have here as a local league is that we can use the positions, not only that are in our own handbook, but the positions that the state has adopted and the positions that national has adopted, as long as we have that member understanding of where we're going in speaking in support or opposition of any one thing. I would invite you, if you have questions, would you put them in the chat? It makes it easier when we're trying to deal with a PowerPoint and not being able to see everybody. And then Sylvia is going to be monitoring that chat and can interject those questions as it's appropriate, or we'll take them at the end of each of our sections.
So Anne, I'm
Yes.
having problems getting, I having problems pasting these into the chat. So I can get them, I get them copied, but I'm having problems figuring out.
Well, once you paste it in, hit return,
I
and
got
then
it.
they should post.
I got it, Sylvia. It worked for me.
Okay, it always takes a village to run these things, so
It sure does.
appreciate everyone's help with this. So in the past, this league has been busy, and over the 75 years that this league has been in existence, these women that have come before us have worked on a whole lot of different things, and I've discovered some really fun things as I have been part of digging through the archives to help put together some history for our 75 year celebration coming up in the fall. One of the very first things that the league did here in 1948, in those early years, was to study city government, and they developed a position on the form of government, which was the council manager form, and then worked to promote that, because at that time, I think you'll remember, well, none of us remember that, that it was the old ward system, if you will. It was the good old boy network. And so there was a real drive to get the city, the council manager form of government. Second thing that those members looked at was county government. And that we've been on county government for years, particularly looking at charter, making it a charter county, which has been unsuccessful. The third action priority leading was in with the public schools. That was of very keen interest in the early 50s. And so those league members studied the public schools, looked at the levies that came up all the time, every year, and would take positions in support of the school levies. And then I thought it'd be interesting, I found a notation that their next project they worked on, starting in 1968, was working on housing needs. Seems like, you know, things just stay with us, don't they? And then study and action moved into the social and health services arena, and then along with environmental quality, particularly looking at air quality and water issues here in the Spokane area. Longstanding work on studies and action related to our sole source aquifer. In our recent past, we've continued taking action by speaking our homelessness committee, making testimonies at primarily city council with regard to our homelessness situation here in Spokane, the redistricting efforts through both the Board of County Commissioners that recently went to the 5 members, and then our city redistricting, our environmental team worked on and made testimony on the Spokane Sustainability Action. So those are some of the key things we've done, what I would call our recent past. And then what I wanted to look at is what are going on with the legislature in our recent past and our connection to LWVWA. Now, this the connection with the state league involves both prep work and session work. And as many of you know, we are in the midst of a legislative session right now, but the State League and the lobby team begin looking at what we're going to do with that way in the previous fall. And one of the things that is particularly part of the pre-session work is the action workshop. So I have a little poll here. I'm logged in from another device and my polling session is inactive. Can someone else bring up the poll?
I will look. Okay, I have a LWV action workshop and speak up school. Is that the poll?
Yeah, bring up poll number 1, please, April.
And launch.
And I am not seeing it at all. I think the co-hosts don't see it. So April, everyone.
I see it. It's up.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead and make your responses and we'll give you a little bit of time. And then April, you get to drive this bus. So thank you.
I think it's the host that must not be able to see it because you're the host and I'm a co-host, but I was able to launch it. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, and you know, I'm the host that created them in this meeting. So I don't,
Yeah.
you know,
So I don't know.
Learn something new every time.
Yeah.
And
So how long do you want me to run it? And then I can end it and
I
then we'll see what
think-
it looks like.
this one has a few more questions. So let's go ahead and share the results. And I can't see the results at all.
I think
wonder.
I'm noticing that I can see how many people have participated and people are still participating. So why
Oh,
don't we give
then
it just a
let's
little
keep
bit
it
longer?
going. That's what I
Okay,
did
there's 6
before.
questions on there. So I think people
Oh,
are still doing it.
Thank you.
So you have to answer each question before you can submit, but in number 5, it says, if yes on Speak Up School, did it meet your expectations? And it's not fair to say either yes or no if you didn't attend.
And so then do you have to answer it? I wonder.
Yeah, it's a red star, so it's required.
Then make it a no. I'm sorry, I forgot to put NA in that one. I'm going to stop share to see if that makes a difference, if I can see when you share the results. Okay, so are you ready? Can you share the results, April?
Is everybody done?
Anybody
had
need more
one-
time? Okay,
Just one popped in, so that's why I wanted to ask and make
Okay.
sure. All right, here we go. We're going to end the poll. And now we can, hold on a second. Let me see, relaunch, download, view result. Okay, so share results. Can people see the results?
well, I can't, so someone
Oh,
else is
that's
gonna have to
odd.
interpret that. Yeah, I'm not
Can,
understanding that.
is everybody else seeing it on their screen? The
I can
results?
see it.
Yeah, you can see it. Okay, so I'll tell you, Anne, number 1, the question was, were you able to attend? And 5 yeses and 10 nos.
Okay,
Do you want me to keep going? Next one?
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Did you view any of the session recordings online? There was 3 yeses and 12 nos. If you attended, how useful were the sessions? 2 said very useful, 1 said somewhat useful, and 2 said mostly useful. And then there was 10 did not attend.
Okay,
Were you able to attend the Speak Up School session 1723? 13 no's and 2 yeses. If yes on Speak Up School, did it meet your expectations? And it was mostly no. And I think, you know, because thank you, Jennifer, for coming off mute and
yeah,
sharing
thank
that.
you for, so we're not gonna really worry about that.
Yeah. And then the last one is, did these sessions help you with taking action on state legislative items? 2 yeses, 1 no, and then 12 not applicable.
Okay, all righty. So this is just to kind of emphasize the point that this kind of service, if you will, is available so that you can feel more in tune with not only what will be coming up in the legislature, but what the league is supporting. And so Let's go back. And now the second poll I'd like you to launch is the one on Lobby Week.
Okay. Lobby week, 2 questions. Okay, so I'm going to launch it. So go ahead, and there's 2 questions for this one.
And just so you know, I think these are anonymous. We don't know who you are. We just know.
It's
a
true.
certain-
I have no idea who's voting. I
Right.
just see
So
the
you
number,
don't have to feel
percentages.
guilty.
Yeah. I see how many participated and what their numbers are, but not who.
Just kind of to get you thinking a little bit about how the state league does help us get involved in the state legislation. Okay, with 2 questions.
Okay, I think we're
probably
ready.
Good,
Yeah.
April. So
Share results. Can you see them?
I still can't. So
No. Okay. So
ask
were
you.
you able to attend any part of Lobby Week? We have 6 yeses and 11 nos. And then did you participate in a legislator meeting? We have 7 yeses and 10 nos.
Okay, so that was, thank you. And so I wanted to give an opportunity to some of those people who did attend legislator meetings, just to, share very briefly what that experience was like for you. And so, Elaine, would you like to start us off? Because one of the things, Elaine is from a district where maybe it was a little bit harder to get support for those bills. So let's talk about how your experience went, Elaine.
Good evening, everybody. My experience went very well. I mean, there were only 2 of us who were able from a District 5 to meet with our legislators. We met with
You're in
3 of
District
them.
4, Elaine.
Oh, sorry, District
Yeah.
4.
We lost 5 to the other side of the state.
Oh dear, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
in District 4 now. And my experience was very positive. I very much appreciated that the State League had their list of bills that were being prioritized, and I was able to pick a couple that I was very concerned about and speak to the legislators about them. On one of them, 2 of the legislators said, oh, they didn't know about that particular bill. It involved a job corps for environmental infrastructure. And they both said that they would look into it. And I thought that was very good. I was glad that I picked that one.
Okay, great. Thanks, Elaine. And now I know we had a couple of people from District 3 that attended. Sylvia?
Yes, so I just encourage everybody to do this. It might feel like it is intimidating talking to your legislators, but it really isn't. It is the best experience. And what I like the most about it is hearing from them about the process, about whether or not the bill is going, even has a remote chance of being heard. And one of the ones that I had prepped for was the abortion rights bill, and there was no chance. They said that there's just no chance at all this session. So it just was a quick pivot and talked about another issue. And anyway, it's just a great way to get to know your legislators, and once again, to let them know that you're very interested and participatory. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. And okay, the legislators in District 3 are Senator Andy Billig, and then Representative Riccelli and Ormsby are the and then we had some others from District 3 that attended. Aruna, have you got a few words you'd like to share?
Sure. It was, as indicated by Elaine, we knew the priorities of League from, Washington League of Women Voters. And I discussed, one of the bill was on advisory votes That was important because as a new voter, sometimes it's very confusing for people to kind of go through the whole bunch of advisory votes, which are non-consequential, but confusing to the voters, and then lack of voter participation, in the election process. So I kind of talked about that. And I also talked about the traffic safety bill, which affects the people, especially from BIPOC communities. And I kind of felt like, the legislator wanted to hear what we had to say, and also too, asking them how can we help them. And that was really helpful when we talked to Representative Richale about the reproductive rights bill. He talked about the couple of bills he had introduced on that arena, and also for the student lunch program. And so kind of having that conversation with our legislatures really help us work together and getting to know them as to what their priorities and expertise are. It'll be nice if our representatives or senators were on different committees, so that we can have more impact on various issues that are important to us. But at least it was very positive experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela is in District 9. Pamela, would you mind sharing a few? Because I know it was a very new experience for you. And so.
Yeah, that was Mary Dye, wasn't it?
Yes, you met with, I think you actually met with all three of your legislators in District 9. Mary Dye and Schmick are the representatives, and then Schlosser is the senator. So no, Schlosser did not meet with you all, because interestingly enough, they said, oh, COVID's over. We're not doing online meetings anymore. They have to be in person. So,
but I believe he met privately with Linnell, if I'm remembering.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. But I spoke on the trust land conservation issues, and Mary Dye was in favor of it, and the other fellow was not giving a commitment. And interestingly enough, I think it was yesterday, I got a telephone call from the Mary Dye people saying that did I want to join her telephone interview meeting, and I chose not to, but at least she had them. So I don't know what was going on with that. So that's basically
well,
it.
that was probably their town hall meeting, because most of them are doing town halls right about now. We do know that the LD3, they were here in Spokane for an in-person meeting on Saturday, and then a number of other legislators will choose to do that telephone town hall. Pamela, could you talk a little bit about what was interesting about your land, the lands trust, because there was a site within the district that was being considered, and
there
so
is a site within the district, and she said that she had spoken with, I can't recall who it was she spoke with, but she was in favor of it, and she was going to vote for it. So
yeah, and so it was a perfect example of this group of people meeting with that group of legislators to be able to say, and oh, by the way, one of the things being directly affected by this bill is in your district. So that was made it it had a nice spin on it, I guess.
yes.
Anyone else who participated? Mary, you participated. Do you have anything you want to say on that? You're muted, Mary.
The last time I did this, we were in District 6, and now we're in District 3. And I was impressed that they met with us. It was especially interesting to talk to Andy Billig. I think he must have had a chart up on his wall with all the bills and their progress. He seemed to know where everything was and when it was going to come and what committee it was in. It was a good experience.
Okay, great. And I can tell you, as the one who organized this, we were able to schedule meetings with all three of the, and they were all separate meetings. Separate meetings in District 3. So there were 3 different meetings for those folks. There were 2 meetings for those in District 9 because as you well know, District 9 now comes up to our city limits. So we have more members in District 9, and we coordinated with Pullman so that representatives from each of those leagues were on the calls with the 2 individuals I mentioned earlier. We were able, I think, Elaine, didn't we got all 4 of them scheduled? Yes, because you spoke with Senator Padden's aide, didn't you?
Yes.
Right. So they were able to connect with all 3 of the legislators in that district. And then we also did District 7. We have several members up in District 7 now as well. And we were able to get them meetings with Senator Short and Representative Kretz. Maycumber did not respond. So all in all, we had quite a few meetings with different legislators, and I thought a very good experience and good turnout on both ends. District 6, we had no one from our league sign up for Lobby Week, and I did so. I scheduled meetings with all 3 of them, but then had to write and say, we do not have constituents in our, here. So they canceled, except Representative Graham's ledge aide said, well, I'll meet with you. So he and I had a little conversation on the league's priority bills, and he said he'd send them on. So, but typically the legislators will not meet unless you are actually a constituent. So I would encourage you all to do this again next year. So thank you for that part. And now, would you launch poll 3?
Okay, I just put a chat to everyone that I meant to send to Sylvia. We're not able to make Allison a co-host, so that's one thing. We just need you to see if you can make Allison a co-host when it's time.
And that's probably true. So
yeah, and then the other thing is I did figure out why you can't do the polls, and I won't take up time to explain it, but maybe at the end
that another time.
I have the answer and I'll explain it to you at the end if you want to know. So so poll 3, right?
Poll 3, and it's a short one.
Okay. So launch, there's 2 questions again. It's a known bug with Zoom. I'll say that.
Okay.
It's not anything, well, it is something we're doing, but it's a bug.
Okay. All right.
All right. Can everybody see the poll on their screen? Oh, good. They're coming in now. Okay, we're getting there.
And I do have Allison as a co-host now, so.
Okay, good. Okay, that's it. All right, in poll.
All right.
Share results. So do you receive and read the LWVWA newsletter, legislative newsletter? 6, yes. 6. What is, okay, so the first one is, and do the main action alerts in the newsletter. That's 6. The one that says, do the action alerts and go to as many individual pages as I can is 6. I received it and opened it as 5, and I am not receiving it is 1. And the second one, okay. And then the second one is, do you contact or meet with your legislator on your own? There was 9 yeses.
Very cool. Good. All right. That one person who's not receiving it, if you contact me, okay, Mary, we'll follow that up and figure that out for you. Because this is a really good way that you can stay in tune and in touch with the various bills as they go through. And why did I just go backwards here? Here we go. So these are those priority bills that you heard people talking about and what's happened to them. And one of the is the abolishing the advisory votes. has had its hearing in the Senate. So it's this is a great time to write to your senator and say, you want, not your senator. It's had a, boy, that got backwards. That is totally wrong. It passed out of the Senate and it's now in the House. So just reverse those words. I don't know where my proofreader was, but I wanted to take you to, we'll see if this works, if this link works. Did it work? Did we change screen? Anybody? Doesn't look like it. Okay, I'll share it, do a new share. Okay, this is that 5082. And if you click on, when you go to the website, you can put this one in, April, the ledge.wa.gov site. This is what comes up, and you can get bill information. You can get the bill information here by typing that number in, and then you can see where that bill is. You can learn all kinds of things about the bill, and all the way down through every step of the way that has been, and then all the various reports associated with. And you can see while it was on the Senate floor, there were a lot of amendments put on it, and you can click on each one of those amendments. You can see here whether or not those amendments were adopted. And then if you really want to treat yourself, you can go back and watch all these various hearings. If you're wanting to see the sausage getting made. So, but this is at ledge.wa.gov. And so now I'm going to go back to, because April, I forgot to do it the way you told me to do it. So these were some of the other democracy bills that were in the priority listing. The the ranked choice voting for presidential primaries and the voucher program both died, didn't even get a hearing. Improving automatic voter registration is due to be exec. So just to get a little bit of lingo there, when something is being exec, that's when the committees, first they have a hearing and the public and people come and testify in favor or not. And then this is where, when you're asked in the legislative newsletter to click on pro for something, that's where your pro vote shows up, is at that hearing. And then the next time that bill comes out is when it's being at what they call exec. It's not an executive session. It's just their terminology for dealing with those amendments, as well as then passing the bill out of committee. And most often, if it's going to get up and be exec, they do seem to get passed out, but amendments can be made at that point. And then, so that means that this bill, improving automatic voter registration, finished in the Senate and is about, well, tomorrow. You can go watch that meeting tomorrow and see what happens in an executive session. And then there were 4 more democracy bills, updating online registrations. We had a lot of these pass out of their House of Origin, as did the Washington Voting Rights Act. And they're due to be, all of these due to be exec later in the week. Well, this one may go into next week. So these are moving. This one died in appropriations. So it means it did not get the approval from the funding committee. Then we had some social and economic bills. And of course, the first one on here, Sylvia already addressed, and that was the amendment to address to the Constitution to address reproductive freedom. And it was to put that on the ballot. And the bills made different progress in their different house. The Senate bill was a little bit more successful, made it to rules, but neither bill, there just wasn't the the votes in the House, because this one, because it was to vote on a constitutional amendment, required a 2/3 majority for it to pass. Everything else here requires a simple majority. And whoops. And so you can see, I'm not going to read all of these to you. So you can see one of the ones that I think our housing people have been watching is this increasing middle housing. And that one has moved out of the House quite well and is scheduled for a Senate policy hearing tomorrow. So if you want, the hearing is when you get to hear everyone else speak on that. And I can go back to just a minute, so when I finish here, and show you one step to take so that you can go to a hearing if you want to. And it's wonderful because we don't have to go to Olympia to do that. And of course, the one near and dear to my heart that didn't get out of the House, it was the RAP Act on our solid waste. And it died in the House rule. Well, actually, it was out on the floor, and they just didn't bring it to a vote because it wound up with 24 amendments on it. And one thing that we always hear from other lobbyists, as well as even our legislators, is that when you've got a bill with that many amendments, you know, it can take 6 hours, which means a whole lot of other things don't get handled either. So obviously this one's going to need more work. Here's the bill that Pamela was talking about the DNR land transactions. It passed out of the House and is moving through the Senate process. And then improving the state's response to climate change. And then here's one, I think, Elaine, you talked about this one, the Washington Climate Corps, and that did pass and is moving through the Senate. So I am going to stop share here for a minute. Does anyone have any questions on the bills? I kind of whammed through that really fast, but I wanted to put them in the chat because I'm gonna try and take you through a little bit more where you can find. I'm probably not going to do the easiest way, but we have our legislative committees, and if you go in here, the ones I'm following are like this one, Environment and Energy. In fact, I was just there. They had a 4 o'clock meeting today, so I was able to testify for a bill at 4 o'clock. And if you hit search here, and then you can go down and see the meeting schedule for this. Oh, it looks like I need to adjust my time. You have to carefully, I've screwed this up before, make sure you've got time encompassed for the meetings. Hit search again. And so this was the agenda for this particular meeting. And then this is the link we are sending all of you when you are being asked to testify on something, because this is how this gets set up. And this isn't quite the link because you can no longer testify for this, but you could still submit written testimony if you wanted to on that particular bill. That was a really quick and dirty way to find a meeting. Now, if I could go to another meeting, you could see, oh, I know where I'm going to go. And then I'm going to turn this over. If you go to the home page of ledge.wa.gov, you can click on House Calendar, and you can see when the House is going to meet again. You can see when the Senate is going to meet again. And then you can click on their working calendars and order of consideration. Well, so there's nothing there now because, I mean, we're starting the process new again. But they do have some bills that are already up because they were passed early enough. So these are bills that the House will be, and it always seems a mystery to know when they're considering what, but so that's the process for a hearing. And now I want to go to introduce, we're going to look anyone have any questions at this point? Because we're gonna take our little journey and look at the future here. Oh, yeah, thank you, Allison, for dropping that point in the chat in terms of when you testify for league, when you testify, no, I don't mean testify. When you sign in, be sure you are not saying you are representing the league. If you talk to your legislator, you're not representing the league, but you can say you agree. When you're talking to them, you can say you agree with the league's position on whatever, but you're not testifying for the league. Allison and I both, as issue chairs, fill in League of Women Voters of Washington when we either just sign in pro or we identify ourselves. And I know I learned this lesson from Allison, and that was to say I'm a volunteer issue chair, because so many of the people that are there are paid lobbyists or doing it because it's a job. And we think it's important that the legislators recognize the volunteer efforts. So I would like to go at this point. I'm done sharing and introduce to you Allison McCaffrey. Many of you know her. Many of you know that she is redistricting is just in her DNA. And Allison has been to this league many times to talk about many things related to redistricting, but she's got a new plan going on. And for those who didn't understand, I shouldn't have just made it be an inside joke. Her DNA, her grandmother, Mary Ellen McCaffrey, who authored a book called Politics of the Possible, very much laid out the early redistricting work. And you know, we can't see it, the background.
No, I was trying to figure out the back. There we go.
Anyway, it's a very good history of getting, and it's been a part of the league's history for years, because in the early years, league actually tried to do redistricting by initiative, where they actually cut out little pieces of paper and did all of that. And then the legislature was tasked with it. And then in 1983, they did pass the commission that we have now. And so Allison is here to talk to you about a be bold for redistricting reform, for something that we're going to be looking at for the next several years. So Allison, take it away.
Thanks so much, Anne. Thanks for having me, everybody. I want to take the next, I don't know, half an hour or so to talk about our Be Bold redistricting reform plan.
We've got about 50 minutes.
Okay, great. So put in chat how much you know about redistricting, and did you follow this redistricting cycle in 2021? I just want to get a sense for the audience. I know many of you, Aruna and Carol and Ann did, of course, and April and Sylvia. Let's just, I'm going to pop out the chat. Do we have anyone that's brand spanking new? Leslie is new. Excellent. I just want to make sure that when I'm talking, we don't lose anybody, and we also get to some more advanced questions if people have followed it. Some followed you at both the state and the Spokane County or Spokane City level. Excellent. Great. Yeah, you're just talking about the LDs and representation and whatnot. Okay, so let me share my screen. I can do this. Boom. And new Zoom settings. Once you share your screen, things go away and you have to kind of set them up again. I hate that. Okay. So what I want to talk about is creating a people-focused redistricting commission. It's the bold idea of getting a constitutional amendment passed that will restructure our commission and make it people focused so that the lines we draw are what the communities want. So most of you know, redistricting is the process of drawing the lines to create our local or our voting districts. I'm going to be talking about state and federal districts, right? People we send to Olympia, people we send to Washington, D.C., but much of these principles also apply at the city and county level. And we'll chime in where there's some overlaps in what we're talking about. So it's really where your voting power starts, right? It's a fundamental part of our voting process, which is how do we group together in order to elect our representatives in this, democratic republic that we live in. So it's really where your voting power starts. We know that the lines can be drawn to diminish or increase voting power. And if we have good maps, more people feel like they are better able to elect the people that they want to represent them. Then those representatives work on all the other issues that you care about. So it's crucial when we're thinking about advocacy overall, like all those bills Anne was just talking about, right? We want our representatives to prioritize and work for the things we want. And we have to start with drawing our districts in a way that represents the most of us. Okay, so here's just a quick picture of the two maps that I work on, which is the 10 congressional districts and the 49 legislative districts. And there's lots of ways you can look at these districts in more detail if you need to know where to find them, both on the state legislative website and on Dave's Redistricting is another application that I use. Now, our commission is a 5-person commission, which is known as a bipartisan political commission, independent from the legislature, but appointed by the legislature. We have 4 voting members that are 2 are Democrats and 2 are Republicans. And this is how the 2021 Redistricting Commission did in our estimation. They did really poorly on transparency. It was clear they were negotiating behind the scenes. They were doing this dyad thing, but then they were cascading those conversations to the next conversations, all things that the Open Public Meetings Act says you can't do. And they ran out of time and missed their deadline. And in the end, the state Supreme Court said, oh, that's all right. Your homework was late, but we'll accept it anyways. So the maps that they finally decided in the last hour became official. They didn't do a great job of prioritizing communities of interest. These are different groups. They can be ethnic and racial groups. They can be business interest groups. They can be people living in the same city. And although they did a decent job on outreach, we don't feel like that was represented in the final maps, partly because they did such a rush job at the end. And they prioritized favoring incumbents and favoring the political parties' negotiation. So it really became one for you, one for us, one for you, one for us. It just seems like there's a lot of evidence that that was going on. The other thing that they didn't do so great at was just staffing and timely communications. And partly it's not the staff's fault. You can't even get the website changed from 10 years earlier until the commission is seated in January of the 1 year. So the staff comes in and they're already behind. They don't hire an executive director until 4 months in. Then that person has to hire 5 more people and just crazy staffing, which meant communications were later than we would have liked to see them as well. So clearly we deserve better than this. This is not a great start to the voting process if it's last minute and hurried, and even though you listen to testimony, it doesn't get considered. So here's some more detail. One of the most obvious places where they didn't listen to the communities is in LD15. And there is a federal court case going on right now. I was just watching all the pre-trial motions going on that are suing the state of Washington, saying that this district does not represent the Latino majority and its interests. And when I sat in 5 or 6 different meetings with people in Yakima, and we were hemming and hawing about how to draw this districts 14 and 15 to best represent this area. And the solution they came up with never was suggested. They grabbed lots of the Latino or Hispanic, as the census says, in Eastern Yakima, and lots of the Latino population in Eastern Pasco to make a majority Latino district in the 15th. We think this was a consolation for the Republicans because this district votes much more conservatively than a ton of the other districts you might draw that would have included the Yakima Nation further south in the 14th. They did listen to the Yakima Nation and keep it all in one district, but they didn't put them with the people that they vote most like in Eastern Yakima. Happy to take questions as we go, but certainly, there'll be time at the end we can bop in. So one way they did not listen to communities, they were horse trading. You get the 15th, we get the 47th, that kind of thing. They protected incumbents. Only 4 legislators were drawn out of their districts, and 3 of them weren't running again, and 1 moved to a new House location. 3 out of 96 incumbents lost in the last election. 1 of them ran against their same party. 1 of them ran against the guy that was appointed, and was only in office 9 months or so. So there was only 1 of those that was truly a competitive district, and the incumbent lost. You can also see, you guys are Spokane folks, that these district lines get a little close to the representatives' houses. And so there may be good community reasons for drawing the line there, but there's also a little suspicion about why would you draw the line there to make sure that that representative stays in his or her district. There are very few competitive districts. And in fact, only in 48% of all the legislative elections in last November's race were actually contested by both major parties. And that's down from 75% the 2 years prior. So that means only 1 in 5 of us actually gets to vote in a district where the outcome is uncertain, or the outcome is not pretty much known, which doesn't seem to be good representation for our state. Now, there's clearly areas where you cannot have a competitive district, but possibly the way other folks have drawn it, the way the league's maps were drawn, there was many more competitive districts. I think I mentioned there was a lawsuit against the last redistricting commission, and they settled. They basically said, hey, oops, mea culpa, we did it wrong. We're going to pay some fines. We're going to pay the attorney's fees for the people who had the gumption to sue, including the Washington Coalition on Open Government. And they ended up making 4 small changes in the WAC, which is the Washington Administrative Code, which is something, but not a whole lot of power to hold the next commission responsible. I would think public opinion would probably be higher than the WAC to hold them responsible and not make the errors that they made last time. The last thing I want to say is they did not have time to do the right things. One example is the Underwood community that's on the beautiful Columbia Gorge area. It's 1,000 people. that whose community is really connected to the city of White Salmon, although they are on the other side of the county line. They're in Clititas County instead of Yakima County. Multiple people from Underwood testified that they would rather be with the people east than with the people west. And because they ran out of time, they just drew the lines on the county line and said good enough, and didn't have the time to take and rearrange the map so those 1,000 other people were distributed differently. So our legislators really aren't listening. We tried 2 different times. The first time was a big league push to try to modernize redistricting before the process happened. Then Representative Pelliciotti did yeoman's work trying to pass the bill through the House, and it did. It did not pass out of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. We learned a lot about how little the legislators knew about redistricting and how they were really protective of the political power. Then the second bill is an example of a couple of senators trying to say, well, let's just make sure that the commission can't do what it screwed up so badly in the very end the time before. And that didn't pass. We think because the commission had settled and changed the WAC, so then it just died in process. There was no political will to actually make it into statute. So you may be mad at this point, but I say don't get mad, get organized. We're looking for redistricting champions in each LD. We're trying to build local league action teams to take the messages that we've been saying about people-focused, people-powered, and make the people the priority, not the parties, and finding good candidates, making sure people's voices are heard, all the things we know that the league is good at. We're the ones that can fix it, and it starts now. Redistricting is kind of an interesting process because it only happens every 10 years. It's way too early until it's too late. And that's how lots of things don't get done. So I'll just are there any questions so far about that? That's kind of the problem, the current situation. Yeah, Aruna.
You know, people would say we just had our census in 2020, we just had our redistricting in 2021. How to kind of, because even at that time to mobilize people for active participation in census and redistricting was hard. How to get the community at large motivated to move forward in this direction? Your effort and starting ahead of time is very important, but I'm just kind of posing that question as to how to mobilize the community.
Yeah, I think it's about education and prioritization, making people understand this point of how fundamental this process is for every other issue you care about. And I'm going to talk more about our plan. Arun, I know you've seen a version of this talk before, but it really is about understanding. For example, right now, the Census Bureau is taking suggestions about the 2030 census, and those suggestions close in April, right? This is the time because the census is working towards that 2030. So we've got to get ahead of the curve to try to mobilize and build so that we can change something that far out. I know, and this is Advocacy 101. Nothing happens in 25 minutes.
Oh,
right?
You're right.
But you can change the world in 25 years, right? So we're somewhere in between, but the idea is you've got to have a long-term vision and you've got to do what you can do. I'm not saying that, everybody has to be on this thing for that huge amount of time, but you've got to do what you can do now so other people can stand on your shoulders and march through. So let's talk about the solution. The April deadline was comments to the Census Commission about the ethnic and racial changes to the census, which is really important. There's going to be an action alert that I'll send out in the next couple of weeks on that. But if you just want to Google census and race and ethnicity, there's lots of news articles on it. Okay, so back to redistricting. Here's our commission, right? 5-member commission made in 1983. The world is a brand new place since then, right? So it's just outdated. We know that a larger citizen independent commission, people-focused commission is the way to go. So many states are moving that way. In this last cycle, Michigan and Colorado, they both instituted a brand new citizen commission that worked well. The proponents are saying, yeah, these are showing to be much better for the citizens of those states. California's Citizen Commission, this is their second time running through. It's a great model for us, and lots of other states that we can learn from. New Mexico, their new commission just lost in their legislature last week. But kudos to them for getting a comprehensive bill that far, right? They're going to try again when the legislature meets again. Okay, so just as an example, what if we expand our commission? We know that 40% of Washingtonians don't identify with either major party. So we need to have people that are unaffiliated with those two parties, quote, independents, on the commission. So as an example, right, what if we had 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 3 unaffiliated with either of those two? Maybe they're all citizens, ideally. Maybe we have to negotiate and keep our appointments because there's some wisdom in people who are politically active and operatives in that sense. Maybe we keep that non-voting chair as a representative and as a facilitator. Just an idea. But then you require that you have to have at least one from every one of those buckets to try to make the negotiation the right way. There's lots of things. So once we change the structure, then there's lots of things we mandate to wrap around the new structure to make sure it works and serves us well. So here's all the other things that need to be part of that. You've got to have that staffing support. Why not have people that are looking at demographics and all of those things all year long or all decade long, right? To understand, they know how the technology is changing. So staff doesn't have to spend 2 months hiring a consultant to figure out how to draw maps that, that they didn't need anyways, because there were other tools and some of them didn't even use. Criteria is interesting. So we've got good criteria in the maps. They're not ranked and they're not very specifically defined in our laws. So how do we make that clearer? So when the commissioners come to negotiating, they're not arguing over what competitiveness means or what something else means. Transparency goes without saying, right? You gotta know that they're negotiating over the right things in public so we can hold them accountable. You have to have clear processes for outreach and input, and you've got to make it accessible in not only translation and languages, but also physically accessible if they're going to have in-person meetings, any way we can think of to make it accessible. So imagine we change number 1, but 2 through 6 are in the laws that wrap around the governance of how this new commission is gonna work. So to do this, we have to pass a constitutional amendment. A state constitution is where our commission is solidified, which was a good idea, right? Because so then when they made the current commission, the legislators couldn't flip it the next session and say, no, get rid of it, right? So it's a hard lift. We need 33 senators and 66 representatives. that are willing to at least send it to the people for a vote, right? That believe that the people-focused commission is the way to go, and will vote for changing it in the Constitution. We can't do this by initiative based on our initiative rules. We can't change the Constitution by initiative. We would have to go through the legislators, which means we need people that will back us, which is also why it takes so long, right? We know the powers that be now. The system is set up, they clearly won in the current system, so why would they want to change it, right? The motivations are really challenging here. Okay, so here's our phases for this campaign. Right now, we're in the purple bucket. We're saying we need to build a network of people that understand redistricting and can educate and talk to their neighbors and their friends about what it is and why it's so important. We need to solidify our organizational partners. We're planning to run a poll or a statewide survey to get an actual benchmark so we can tell how to move the needle. And we can also test out different communication strategies to reach more people of all ilks, right? So we've got 2 years here to have us work in local communities, work at the state level, and just make this as big a deal as we can. Then we go to the speak out phase, right? Now we got to start getting louder, start doing PR things. I'm so excited to do things like walk the line parties, where you get a crazy part of a legislative district and you just get a group of you to walk the line and promote that maybe we should know about redistricting, those kinds of things. Letters to the editors, data, get in front of candidates, that kind of thing, to just be loud and get more media attention on this. Then you have to do your legislative strategy, have your champions, pass it through the legislature, and take it to a vote in the November general election. Then you're not done, right? That's the green part. Then you're not done. You got to go to the watchdog phase now. After you pass something, now it's about implementation, and you got to make sure that it gets implemented right. That now that you've created this great commission, that people are engaged, and we do speak up schools again. Some of you participated in those, where people are testifying and doing a great job there. And you just stay loud, meaning always on the commission to do the right things and do them correctly and timely and all that stuff we were just talking about. We want a commission report card that's all A's, right? That would be great if we could get there. Okay, so here's your take action. Create a local area task force, right? Whether that's from the action team or a separate team. Each of you could find 3 more friends to learn about redistricting and support this kind of reform. We're currently on a sign-on campaign to get local leagues to sign on. I'm presenting to the state board on April 10th to make this redistricting campaign a large part of what the state's doing over the next 2 to 8 years. And rally other community organizations. Many of you are in other nonprofits, church organizations, local neighborhood clubs. You can get all of them to learn about redistricting, know why it's important, and say they'll support this kind of reform. Okay, I will stop there and take any questions. I explained it all just beautifully. I was kind of a speed demon, kind of.
Well, Allison, I just wanted to share one thing, because I know that last year we were very consciously trying to work to ask in our candidate forums about the redistricting, and flat out we just had one candidate say, well, my people aren't talking to me about that. So
Right.
that's it's that kind of thing of making the candidates aware as well.
Yeah, a bunch of leagues did that. We got a lot of, well, I'd be open to it. I don't know what the reforms would be, right? Or we got a my constituents aren't concerned about it, so I haven't thought about it, right? Like you were
Right.
just saying. The only way this works is that legislators know that their constituents care about it. And even to the extent that you're saying, hey, I'm only going to vote for someone who cares about defending our democracy, making our state the best equitable representation state in the nation, and we should do these things. Yeah. Gretchen, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. If you had 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and 3 unaffiliated, how are the 3 unaffiliated chosen?
Yeah, it's interesting since we do not register by party, right? So we'd have to
Right.
develop some criteria, which there's lots of folks that have done stuff. You know, you do a certification of, you know, I swear I don't associate, I've never done this, or I've never done that, right? I've never worked for the parties. So you'd work out some kind of rules. You'd also, like the other commissions, you also reach out and get a solicitation process, most likely run by our Secretary of State, and you get buckets of people that are, quote, approved, and then you do a random draw from those. Often the political parties have like veto power over people in the process. California's process takes 20 months to go from opening. And the very first time they did it, 40,000 people requested to be part of, and 14 in the end get it, right? This last go around, I think there was 5,000 or 6,000 people that signed up to want to be a commissioner, and 14 get it. A cool thing about their process is this random process picks the first 8, and then those 8 people look back into the pools and pick the next 6, which I really like, because then the team itself is saying, oh, wait, maybe we should have a university professor. That would be a good addition to our group. And they pick that person out of the pool. So lots of that process to be decided.
And I have one other question, or more a comment. My husband was on a redistricting commission for our county commissioners. And one of the things, I like the idea of, they could pick it well before the census. It doesn't have to be that same year, but they needed training. It was the program for them to use to try to move things around, and that was a poor program. And even the company that had been hired to do this didn't know what they were doing to some extent. And so I hope you would add to your points, the structure, the support, training for the commissioner members on technology, especially, or
absolutely
whatever, but they definitely need training prior to the whole process. I mean, they can pick the people, but then they need the training prior to actually the census even being completed.
Yeah, that's another crazy thing about the timing for our system, is that they don't want to even say who they're going to appoint until after the November elections. Then they don't even actually have to appoint them. Like this time we knew the Democrats in December, but we didn't actually know the Republicans until the first day of the legislature, because that's all they're required to do, right? So then the clock's ticking. By January 15th, you've got to be done by November 15th, right? So this is not even a year long. And so those people are like, what, training right now? Why not appoint them earlier and get them trained? There's lots of, like, the National Association of State Legislators, I forget its acronym, right? They run a redistricting training that's bipartisan, right? Our folks can't miss it because they're not even appointed yet. Yeah, I totally agree with you that training, and it's mandated now by their WAC that they have to have open public meeting training by 30 days in of their appointment. Which is also important to know how the open public meetings work. Yeah.
So for some reason, I can't find my hand raised.
Okay.
I don't
Jump
what
in, Ann,
Zoom's
here
doing
comes-
to me tonight. I just
Yeah,
don't know. But I
we're-
think what you were talking about California, other states,
Great.
it sounds like there's a little bit more of what you would call an application process.
Yeah.
Because in our system right now, it's whoever they get together and decide to go for. I don't think there was any application process for who got appointed, right?
No, it's all behind the scenes, it's all the caucuses. So just
Right.
like everything else in caucus is all behind the curtain.
Yeah, and so we heard an interesting presentation on how in the city of Portland, the change they just made,
Yep,
because they've
yep.
gone to this, and they had an application process where sort of like the old civil service things you filled out, you get
Mhm.
points for certain things in your
Mhm.
application.
Mhm.
And then the applications are ranked on various things, skills, like getting the college professor kind of thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's certainly, and the other point, Allison, you and I talked about too, in looking at the potential changing of this for the state of Washington Commission, that because the commission that was set up in the legislature in the RCWs for our county commissioners was based on that. And
Right.
so we then need to look at laws down in the next domino and see what may need to be fixed there.
Yeah, what I like about that, I've been thinking about that since Ann and I were talking about that part of our comprehensive reform should probably include that county charter RCW that says, do your
Well, it's
county,
because the county doesn't have a charter.
I'm
so,
sorry, in your county rules,
Yeah.
right?
You're right.
Do the commission differently, or put in some rules about how you do your commission. Because we wouldn't want to fix it at the state level and then have county and cities back to the old party system, right? That would, the whole
Okay.
system needs to work better. Yeah.
Okay,
Aruna,
we've got
and then
roughly
Carol.
10 more minutes, Allison.
Okay.
I am wondering if we can learn from Michigan or California or Colorado, what difference this change in redistricting rules has made as far as the people of those states are concerned, and hear their voices. And then we can probably mobilize our communities. I kind of feel like, what did they value? What change did they see? And then, kind of bring that information to our people here to be able to have effective changes. That's what I feel. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that idea. We're certainly hearing in news reports that the Michiganders, many more Michiganders liked this process, even though the commission in Michigan got sued by the Republicans and the Democrats. I was hearing a commissioner today say, I think that means we did a pretty good job if both sides sued us. So yeah, but I think what's key about your idea is, let's hear the words from the everyday people so that we can use those to motivate our everyday people. Yeah. Carol?
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of applying to a commission, there needs to be some reform there too. I'm on the state board for the community colleges, and my term was up in September, and they still haven't appointed somebody. I think there's one person in the office that does the appointments, and if you look at all the commissions that we have, it's a very slow process. It's also true of our trustees for the community colleges.
Yeah.
So that's just something to be aware of. It sounds great, we'll just have them apply it to the commission, but that's a very slow process.
Yeah, like I said, California is like 18 to 20 months to go. That's even after the applications close, right? Like as they go through this review process, and then the parties have their vetoes and like all that stuff. Going through the, can you do it? Some people can't do it anymore, even though they get chosen,
or they aren't even alive anymore.
Yeah. Could be. I want to also say that one of the most exciting things about doing a big campaign like this is how much it can help our leagues, right? It can grow the capacity, it can grow the membership, which helps us do more things. It grows our reputation. This is a perfect kind of issue for the league. We've been championing redistricting since 1930. Right? So why stop now? The other like pro-democracy, good government organizations are doing lots of other good stuff, right? Ranked choice voting, multi-member district, campaign finance reform. There are other organizations that have picked those as their key issue. Fair Vote Washington, right, is ranked choice voting every day, all day, blah blah blah. So this is an amazing opportunity for the league to really get out in front and strut our stuff and connect with other coalitions, connect with other communities, and build this network that's all based on people power and making sure that our government works the way we want it. Yeah, are there any more questions?
Okay, any more questions? Okay, I'm gonna do well, I was gonna do it, it went away. Well, I guess I'll just do it and make you have to do this. It'll be easiest. Get down. Otherwise, figuring out my background here. Because we are, thank you ever so much, Allison, for bringing
Very
this
welcome.
to our group. And
Thank you.
also wanted to let you know that one of the issues, agenda item I have for the board tomorrow to consider is signing on to this letter and letting the state league know that we would support this. So ways to take action, just as a quick review here. Make sure you're reading the legislative newsletter and responding to action requests, and then attend those state league offerings to learn more about state legislation. And locally, oh, I'm trying to scroll down because it's covering up here, because that's where all your pictures are. Become involved in one of our local committees. We'll have ways to look at redistricting, and we've certainly got a lot of potential action coming up here in Spokane in terms of local issues. And then, yes, contact your elected officials, whether they're local or state, as an individual. But just remember to say you're not, to not identify yourself as talking for the league. And this is what advocacy is about in terms of the league. This comes from our national website. I'm not so sure about the word pleading, but we do want to be speaking for causes. And as Allison was just saying, certainly redistricting is a league cause. So April, I'll toss it back to you for the closing.
All right, bye everybody.
I'll take a minute to review the calendar.
Okay, so this is our closing. We've got these upcoming events. Most importantly, I want to call out that this Friday is St. Patty's Day. Make sure you have yourself a green beer or do something to celebrate St. Patty's Day. It's very important. But next is our board meeting tomorrow. If you want to join our board meeting, reach out to Sylvia Oliver and she will get you that link if you're interested. Then our next general meeting is April 11th. That one's going to be in person at St. Andrews, and there'll be more information coming out on that, but I think everyone's really going to enjoy a little in-person time. And then we'll have our board meeting right after that. There's going to be a call to the annual meeting coming up because in May is our annual meeting, and more information will be coming out on our annual meeting. And then April 29th will be the call to annual meeting. May 4th through 7th is the convention in Pasco. And there's all kinds of information on the state website, LWVWA, regarding the convention. And then our actual annual meeting will be on May 16th. And that's our rundown of what's to come. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to hang out and have other questions, maybe Allison and I can hang out for a little bit, a couple of minutes. Anyone who wants to stay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, all of you who spoke up, and April, thanks for rescuing the technology here, and appreciate that. Mary.
Finding the button to unmute. So my question was, you had a book on some redistricting. What could I read? What could we, I'd like our website or whatever to have something to read so we could become certified or whatever in this process. Because my comment was to even apply for some of these appointed jobs, you should already have your, background, certification, something. And, I don't think being a professor of something makes you qualified. It just means you've had that job. I've worked with a lot of engineers who didn't really always know what they were doing. So I'd like to know if we have some certification, something we can read.
So there is a redistricting 101 slideshow and notes that's on the league website. I can send a link to that if that's of interest. That's just making sure you know the basics of how redistricting works. There's
ABCs. Well, if we
Yeah.
talk to our communities, we need to be really good at communicating because we're trying to sell an idea.
You are. Although I would push back a little bit. You don't need to be an expert. Like I spent hours and hours doing maps, right? But you don't need to do that. You need to say, I know why it's important, that it's fundamental to our voting process. And I believe that the people should be represented the best that we know how. And we should have people on our commission that promise to do that instead of having a political commission, right? All the other stuff is good to know, but not crucial, right? So you can, I'm not saying education isn't good, right? But don't let that be the barrier to talking to people about it. Because maybe you find somebody that wants to learn together with you if you speak out, right?
That's one of the things I'm looking at is.
So and if you just Google redistricting, there's a ton of stuff. So
Yeah, but I don't know if, there's an awful lot of a ton of stuff. I don't always know if it's really good.
I would start with our redistricting 101 slideshow. I would, we also have Speak Up Schools, which is all about testifying. There's videos of those, so you can actually get a group of people together and just watch those already recorded videos about how to testify and what things you might say.
But I'm more of a community-based kind of thinker. So if I got 15 people together and say, where would you like to see our lines? Would you like to be, I'll look at the 9th and the 4th. Perfect example.
Yeah.
The 9th is in Pullman, and lower. It's ridiculous. I go to have children in school or grandkids in school or eat or shop. Yeah. They got nothing in common with those other folks. And that to me was a real stink in the eye of redistricting.
I'll put one other resource out there. My other organization, which is Politics of the Possible in Action, we created a play that dramatized my grandmother's fight for redistricting in 1965. Fun evening entertainment. Anne Murphy's sister is the actor. And it's amazing. So there's also those kinds of things that you can organize get a group of people together and learn in a fun, entertaining way, which will then lead you to that, lead you
'cause
to more conversation.
I was thinking of actually getting some library space
Yeah,
and just putting it up and saying, hey, we're gonna have redistricting, chit chats.
sure, absolutely.
And
just
to me,
like getting,
that's a better outreach, because you're gonna, 10 years from now, generationally, people move on.
sure,
I
sure.
die, move, whatever. We're trying to bring in newer, younger, diverse faces.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's fun just to blow up a big map and see where the line is and say, what, wait, this is on that side and that's on that side. And
Well, and part of that can speak to your little bit of frustration with the 9th district and Pullman. I mean, Allison can certainly attest to what happened because of where the population growth in our state these 10 years was over on the other side of the state. So those districts, in order to make them proportional, got smaller. Ours got bigger geographically just because of the population. And so that's sort of an interesting thing to look at as to how that changes. Now, I'm certainly not defending where they actually drew the line.
No, and I mean, you brought us some good thing, that Underwood or whatever, that little city.
yeah,
Community.
a little community of
Shop, speak, babysit, whatever. A county line doth not make a redistrict.
no.
And we have this synonymy, if that's a word.
Oops, you're freezing, Mary.
Mary, we lost you. Yeah, county lines are troublesome because they are one of the criteria that commissioners can use. And sometimes it's just a easy thing to do, right? City lines, you'll often see these weird, like around the Spokane airport, right? There's these weird, all the LDs go around and follow the city lines sometimes. And you're like, why is that? Well, so then that's historical city lines as well. And believe me, Vicki Dalton wants you to follow the city lines for sure. But she's the Spokane auditor, right? But
actually, I know her very well. She comes to my house. So yeah.
So there's your expert. Yeesh. She knows so much about the nitty gritty of how these line drawings affect your community. It's wonderful. She's a great asset to have.
Anne knows this is where I kind of have to be careful, because my husband is the 4th LD chair for Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do league, and I'm a very green personality, I like facts, I like figures, the rest is opinion.
Yeah.
So to have town meetings just in a library setting gives you a platform to, let's all play nice.
Mm-hmm.
And just maybe, like I would say, what's your criteria for redistricting, right?
Yeah,
And
I think
I haven't seen that yet. What's your criteria? Do I shop with you? Do I go to the same schools, fire districts?
so. Yeah, Mary,
So
look up.
we need to play catch up with Mary because she's just rejoined the league. You missed a lot of things in the last couple of years that we have talked about here, but there are a lot of new people that need to do this. And so then you become perfect people to be on a task force here. So we'll call you.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote down.
I am interested. That's why I'm asking. I am interested.
Mary, in redistricting lingo, what you're talking about is called communities of interest. And you can prioritize a community of interest. And it's a little abstract concept, but it's basically who are you in community with and why?
Okay, well, I've taken a lot of airtime, but I appreciate that, because this seems, you got to look at what you can provide, and maybe you're networking with people. And this one seems to me, in 10 years, I'd like to get started.
Yeah.
Well, that's
why I'm
what
talking
Allison is doing for us here. So, because last time around, she waited because people said, well, it's too early to start talking about it. And then,
and then it was too late.
and it was too late to get something accomplished. So this will definitely come up again, Mary. So, yeah. Okay.
You can join our statewide meetings as well. We hold once a month if you would like to learn some more.
Okay. And I go to those. So, can I send her the link, Mary, or Allison?
Allison, sure. Although Mary should register via the State League website. That way we'll get all her information.
Oh, okay. I'll let